historical female friendship fact. In the 1800s, if you had a huge friend crush on a girl, it was called a smash. To kick off this very brief history of female friendships slash BFF slash besties slash gal pals slash girlfriends, let's hop skip back in time to the 17 and 1800s. For men and women alike, this was the heyday of the romantic friendship. Platonic same-sex friendships that were both physically very intimate and also emotionally very passionate.
Dearest Prudence, my love for these, like the rain falling on speckled trees and dogwoods in the spring.
Friends would write love letters to each other. Victorian women would sometimes have fake weddings to marry their best friend. At women's colleges, it was common for some women to cross-dress and go as men to their school dances because actual men weren't allowed at dances until the 1920s. Girls were actually encouraged to develop these romantic friendships. Their parents thought that it would be a good experience for them for marriage and learning how to take care of a spouse. But in 1892, the highly publicized murder of a young woman named Frida Ward by her lover, Alice Mitchell, started to raise people's eyebrows about the appropriateness of these extremely close friendships that were sometimes sexual between women. By the end of the 1920s, we have American psychoanalysts warning of how, quote, one of the most common perversions of the libido is a tendency of teenage girls to affix their affections on members of the same sex. Bees, knees, oodle lolly, bootleg gin. That assumption that besties just want to make out with each other on the dance floor at some point is not a new thing. It's also by this time that marriage has undergone this evolution from being a purely economic arrangement between two people who might not necessarily like each other to being a joining of two people who are in love and are friends. Nevertheless, throughout the 20th century, best friendship, sharing secrets, being bonded for life to someone else in that platonic way is still considered a feminine pursuit. It's long been assumed that women are simply better cut out for friendships because we are more emotional and communicative and we just love sharing ourselves with other people. Perhaps because of that feminization of friendship, there's been so much more scrutiny paid to both the positive and negative dynamics of these women-to-women relationships.
This just in, the very first use of frenemy was in 1953 by the newspaper columnist Walter Winchell, although I don't think he was describing to ladies who don't really like each other but pretend otherwise.
With the 2004 release of the Lindsay Lohan classic Mean Girls, the idea of women having just as many friends as frenemies was firmly cemented in our pop cultural consciousness. There are so many more studies devoted to putting female friendships under the microscope compared to examining male friendships. Which is why we know, for instance, that girls tend to uphold their friends to stricter standards. We also know that thanks to elevated levels of oxytocin in our brains, hanging out with our lady friends de-stresses us. And according to one study that seems to hold no scientific merit whatsoever, pairs of girlfriends tend to know who's the prettier one. Yeah, I know who the prettier one is. But there was one study finding that really jumped out to me, and it was that female friendships, especially earlier in life, are a lot more fragile than male friendships. That resonates with me when I read about cases of girls cyberbullying and social media slut-shaming and being not just frenemies but straight up enemies to other girls. And while I know experientially and just from seeing other people around with their friends that female friendship and best friends are alive and well, I also think that today especially, girls and women need to embrace and protect their friendships more than ever before, and to not take these incredible bonds between other girls and women for granted. I want to hear from you though, girls. What's it like being a friend these days?